Alright, what's good, internet? My name is JB, and it is tier list time for the ARMAROUGE release, and we might talk about some, nerfs and buffs that I may or may not have talked about in a previous tier list. I don't remember when the last one I made was. These are kind of just inconsistent at this point. But either way, we're just going to go ahead and do a little bit of talking about the meta here in the game of the wonderful Pokemon Unite. So we're going to go ahead and get things started by going over our tiers. We have our S tier. Went ahead and split up the A tier of A plus and A. That's just for the people who are like, oh, this tier has too many Pokemon in it, or you're ranking too many characters too high. It doesn't, matter. Just like, these are just like an arbitrary ranking. So like, I don't know, split up A tier and A plus tier. We have B tier, C tier, D tier. And the reason it skews more higher is because more characters are good in this game than are bad. I think there are very few like actual bad characters in this game, but we'll get to those for sure. But let's go ahead and hop on into this. We'll start off with supports this time around. All right, we have them all just sitting in A tier for now. And honestly, they're all, most of them are probably at least A tier, if not slightly higher. We're starting off with Mime. I do think Mime, while obviously not a true support, it's more of a defender than anything, slash kind of an all-arounder. It's a good Pokemon for sure. I don't know. I think it's probably B. It's not great, but it does have, its matchups where just stunning people with confusion will do wonders. Power Slap Psychic is really good, but I think just in terms of what you want out of a support, these 3-4 characters just do that job better. And if you want like a brawly, defender, I think there are also characters that do that job just as well, if not better. But Mime is definitely still very, very solid. Eldegoss is going straight to A+. I think Eldegoss is awesome. Great A-presser. All of its moves are good. Good Unite move. Really good early on. I mean, we all know how good Eldegoss is at this point. Not a whole lot else to say there. Clef. I'm very tempted to put Clef in S tier just because of how much it heals, but we're going to go ahead and just put Clef in A+. Moonlight is dumb. It heals so much. Like, it doesn't get played as much as some of the other supports because, supports just naturally have like the lowest pick rate in the game because people are bad and just like herder, Oonga Boonga, caveman brain, let me carry. But yeah, whatever. Yeah, Clef is very solid. Needs to be played more. Actually, no, it doesn't need to be played more because it's very broken. Very, very, very broken. Just heals too much. Good Unite move. Follow Me and Gravity are both very solid. All right, Wiggly. I think Wiggly stays in A tier. I think as a defender more so than a support, like we talked about with Mime, I think Wiggly has one thing going for it that Mime just simply doesn't, and that is Q-Charm. Q-Charm by itself is like one of the most broken things in the entire game, but the rest of the character is just good to pretty good. I think Wiggly, I don't know, it's a character that doesn't really get a lot of play, but when you see a Wiggly on the enemy team, you're just like, my god, my life is going to be miserable. And I can't justify putting Wiggly any lower than this. I think it's very strong and just really good overall, so A tier. Blissey's a weird one because I see so many Blissies play Safeguard for absolutely no reason. I think playing Safeguard, if you're not playing against like Freeze Lane, or you have like one of the really good A-pressers on your team, I think Safeguard Helping Hand is borderline grief. But if you are playing against like a super heavy CC team, then yeah, it does have some merit. At least in solo queue, and 5-stack, that's a totally different conversation, but we're not talking about 5-stacks because I don't have 4 friends. Anyway, Blissey, great Unite move. Eggs are really good. Its other moveset is good, even though I don't love it. I think it's going to go into A tier, or A+ tier. Just supports are incredibly good. It's just no one knows because no one plays them. Hoopa, probably also A+. You could talk me into S tier for Hoopa, just because Hyperspace Hole is so valuable. But I will say, just because of how much value it does lose in solo queue, because people would just not play with your portals and just ignore them, I will put it in A+ tier. But yeah, it's another really good A-presser, does very good damage. Trick is a great duo queue, pocket carry build, and it feels a little bit more ethical than some other duo queue supports. But yeah, dude, I don't know. Hoop is great, very strong. Sableye is terrible, one of the worst Pokemon in the game. I don't want to hear it. It's like there are maybe 5 or 6 Sableyes in the entirety of Master Rank that aren't griefers, but every single other time there's a Sableye on my team, it's just an instant loss. This character is so bad in terms of how it plays with a team that I just cannot justify taking it out of D tier. Aside from like, the few very, very, very small list of players who do actually play Sableye well in team fights, using their abilities to stun people, using their abilities to help their team. That just 99.9% of the time doesn't happen. Your Sableye is just in the opposite lane scoring 7 points because that's just what people think Sableye is supposed to do, and it's not. But even what it is supposed to do isn't that valuable, so D tier for Sableye, with the exception that there are some players who make it look pretty reasonable. And then finally we have Comfey. If you've been here for a minute, we don't really need to discuss this one. Comfey's dumb. It takes characters that are broken and makes them unstoppable, and it takes characters that are mediocre and makes them great. Like, Comfey is just fundamentally on a base gameplay level broken, so therefore S tier. I don't need to explain myself further, and I won't explain myself further. Let's do speedsters next. I do believe I have all of them, and we are including Scyther with the speedsters as always. So starting off with our friendly neighborhood burb, Talonflame. I think Talonflame can stay in A tier. It's very good. Like, I really enjoy both of its builds, and it does really respectable damage. The problem just with Talon is whether or not your Talonflame will actually use its abilities on enemies, or will it use its abilities to run away from enemies and try to score. So I don't know, it's just entirely dependent on the player and the player base, but overall I think Talon is a very strong character that plays pretty well into mages, so I like Talon quite a bit. Absol, I'm going to move down to B. I think Absol has a place where if you're winning games very heavily, I forgot Gengar, lol. We'll get to Gengar in a minute, but I think Absol has a place where if it's snowballing a game, and I guess we could just talk about Gengar in the same way, because I'll put Gengar in B tier, despite Gengar getting buffs, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. These characters are both characters that really need a level lead to play well. If you are snowballing, you will absolutely dominate, but otherwise you're just kind of existing. I will say the buffs to Gengar make it a little bit better than it was before. Certainly a much more viable pick than it used to be, and still incredibly strong into very like tank and all-arounder heavy comps. Like Hex absolutely shreds teams like that. And I do think Dream Eater, if you are in a lobby with a bunch of, you know, squishies like a lot of lobbies are, then yeah, it definitely has its moments, but you do need to be ahead because Gengar is incredibly squishy, has like the ability to one-shot entire teams, but also has the ability to be absolutely useless, just entirely dependent on its level compared to its target's level. So if it's a high level, scary. Not a high level, not scary. Pretty much the equation there. Zeraora, I think, is forever one of the most underrated Pokemon in the game. I'm a huge fan of Discharge. As you guys know, it is one of my all-time favorite builds in the game. I think Wild Charge is fundamentally broken on also like a game design level, just because, you know, invincibility is stupid. People, you know, always talk about how dumb Mimikyu Play Rough is because it gives invincibility. Yeah, well, imagine that, but more damage. That's exactly what Wild Charge is, but for some reason, Wild Charge doesn't get as much hate as Mimikyu Play Rough does. Either way, I think Zera overall is a pretty solid character. I'm going to leave it in B tier, though. I do think for what it's worth, it's better than these characters, but I don't rank them. I don't rank the Pokemon within the tiers. I do think Zera is better than both of those Pokemon, though. It just has a really good Unite move. Discharge is unbelievable, has really good mobility. Unite move can one-shot things. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of the Zera. Scyther. You guys aren't going to believe this. I think it's another B tier Pokemon. It's totally just like the definition of mid. Everything it does fine to okay, but, you know, I'd rather have like this character if I want a speedster, or, you know, maybe even this one if I want a speedster, or if you're going to play an all-arounder, I'd rather have like 7 other all-arounders. So, I don't know. Scyther's weird. It's totally fine. Has a really good Unite move. Can, you know, chain KOs pretty well with dual wing beat, but most of the time it's just sort of there. It's a good Pokemon though, but there are just simply better ones around. Dodrio. Dodrio's so weird. Dodrio is so weird because in my mind, I know Dodrio is a very good Pokemon, but in the last like 2 or 3 months, when was the last time you saw Dodrio do anything useful? Like, it's been a rough go of it ever since some of these, you know, tankier all-arounders came into the game and some of these defenders got some crazy buffs and just, you know, the meta became tankier and harder to KO. And Dodrio is just, you know, Dodrio's really good in the squishies, and Dodrio's really good when everything doesn't have CC, and everything that's getting played a lot has CC. Everything counters Dodrio. So I don't know, man. In my brain, I know it's higher than this, but like a part of me wants to put it C tier because I am just like, if I see a Dodrio, unless it's like I know a very good player, then like I'm not worried about a Dodrio because it's just kind of there. But I don't know, I'm gonna give it B tier just because I know it's a better character. than how it feels when I see it in my games. But I don't know, man. It's Dodrio could use a little bit of love, I think, personally. So, you know what? Screw it. C tier for Dodrio. We're being mean in this tier list. I want something for people to get mad about. So we're putting Dodrio in C tier. Zoroark. I think Zoroark is just a smidge better than these guys. I think Zoroark has one of the worst Unite moves in the game, particularly for speedsters. I think his Unite move is really bad, but the mobility you get, the damage you get from your abilities is very good. I think Night Slash is the right one. No, Feint Attack. Feint Attack is awesome, obviously. I don't know. I just think Zoroark is just simply a little bit better than these other Pokemon, so I'm going to give it the benefit of A tier. Leafeon goes S tier with a bullet. This character is just broken with a capital B. Razor Leaf needs so many nerfs. Its Unite move needs so many nerfs. Like, those are the only two things the character does, and it's still one of the best Pokemon in the game. Like, yeah, it's okay. Well, it's Razor Leaf, and then it's boosted auto, and then Unite move. Like, that combo can one-shot pretty much everything in the game. And there's nothing more frustrating, especially as a YouTuber, and I can attest to this because I have YT at the end of my name. Getting Unite moved by a Leafeon 7 times a game is the most fucking frustrating thing in the world. And it happens to be pretty much every time there's a Leafeon in my game. So that's why it's like I used to ban Comfey every single game in draft. I ban Leafeon every single game in draft because I'm sick of just getting ran down by the stupid Pokemon's Unite move, because that's all these players know how to do. And the game allows it because the Unite move is broken, and then even if they mess their Unite move up a little bit, then all they have to do is throw a Razor Leaf and an auto, and they just still one-shot you anyway. Like, even if you're playing like Tree, okay, Tree's like maybe the one example that was bad, but like if you're playing an all-arounder, you're getting one-shot by Ninetales most of the time, or not Ninetales, by Leafeon, because this character is just fundamentally broken. If I said Ninetales that entire time, my bad. I'm just kind of staring at my screen, and Ninetales was like what my eye was catching because it's blue. But yeah, I meant to say Leafeon. If I said Ninetales during any of that, I meant Leafeon. I'm just dumb. Caveman brain. Anyway, yeah, Leafeon needs to be just super nerfed. Meowscarada. I'm gonna tentatively give it A+ because I think it is slightly better than Zoroark, and that is mostly because I know how good Flower Trick can be. I just personally hate the build. I think the build is just like has no synergy in my brain. Like, listen, I play this game a lot. I know how to play the build. I know how the build works. I just don't like the build. But Night Slash, give me an auto attack build. I can do that. But I don't know. I do understand that. Yeah, Flower Trick do be good. I just think it's stupid. It also has one of the most broken passives in the entire game. Can't tell you how many times you catch a Meowscarada making a horrible play, and then it just gets bailed out because there's a broken passive. Nerf the passive, and then nerf like some of the damage from like its attack speed. Really, just nerf the passive. That's kind of like the main thing keeping it up here. Its Unite move is pretty good too, but Meowscarada A+. I think it's the second best speedster in the game. Let us do Defenders next. Okie dokie, Defenders. We have Snorlax up first, and Snorlax is solid. I think Snorlax goes in B. Block is really good. Yawn is incredible. Unite move is up a lot. Really good early game. I'm gonna give it B tier. Crustle, I want to leave in A. I really like Crustle. Rock Tomb is great. X-Scissor is great. Stealth Arc is great. One of the best Unite moves in the game. Good pretty much all throughout the match. So, gonna leave Crustle in A tier. Blastoise. What a fall from grace, man. Blastoise is so weird because I know the character just isn't bad. But again, similarly to Dodrio, when was the last time you saw Blastoise do anything? Well, the nerfs to its stuns really hurt it, which obviously were needed. But its damage build just feels like it kind of tickles. So, I don't know. Blastoise is weird. I think it's definitely better than C tier, but with how it's performing currently, which is what these tier lists are supposed to be, how they're performing right now, not how good they actually are, I think Blastoise is performing pretty poorly, so C tier. Slowbro, you could easily talk me into S, and you're gonna, I'm gonna go A+ for Slowbro, because the way things kind of are right now, and my buddy Galadite kind of like, you know, broke my brain on this, because Slowbro is kind of just the Unite move button these days. Obviously, it still has, you know, good CC with Surf and Scald, but particularly in solo queue, you need your teammates to follow up on your Unite move, and they don't really do that all the time. And even if they do, your team can the other team can kind of just pile on the Slowbro while it's, you know, ulting. Well, it can't do anything in Insult. So it's kind of like where it used to be, you know, the thought was, oh, hey, Slowbro ults this character, you take this character out of the game. Well, Slowbro is also kind of taking itself out of the game because the survivability isn't quite what it used to be, and there's just a lot of burst damage going around these days. So yeah, Slowbro still one of the best characters in the game very easily, but I'm gonna put it A+. If you, I mean, obviously it's still incredible. If you want to put S tier, I'm not gonna argue with you, but just because of that, like, you know, brain wrinkle, is like, oh yeah, Slowbro does kind of just, you know, get itself KO'd Unite moving like 50% of the time these days. So I'm gonna put it A+ tier for that. Mamo is, I think, one of the most underrated characters in the game. It's a really good, like, carry defender, super underrated in that role. Has some really good CC. The only problem with Mamoswine is, of course, the level 9 Evo, and also having one of the worst Unite moves in the game. Other than that, I think Mamo is incredibly solid, really good into a lot of these all-arounders that are really good right now, so could probably be moved up to A tier, and I think I talked myself into moving it up into A tier. I think it's very comparable to Crustle, and I think these characters are just a little bit better into what's good now than like Snorlax is, because Snorlax is still just a little bit too reliant on, you know, teammates following up your blocks or your yawns and whatnot, and then Flail is also just a meme. So I'm gonna give Mamoswine the benefit of the doubt and say A tier. Greedent, listen, Greedent's really fun. I'm a big fan of Bullet Seed. I think that build is great. It's a lot of fun to run around and just be a squirrel, but this character is useless in terms of actually being helpful to a team. It does nothing of use for its team. It's just sort of there, running around, being annoying, not really, you know, giving anything of value. So I don't know. I like the squirrel. Its Unite move strong. It can be good in the right hands, but 9 times out of 10, if there's a Greedent on your team, you're not happy about it. So D tier. Trevenant's awesome. S tier. Yep. Still stuns a lot. Still has great sustain. Great Unite move. S tier. Goodra. I'm putting Goodra C. This is always like the litmus test for how good a person is at Pokemon Unite are their opinions on Goodra. If people think Goodra is broken and one of the best characters in the game, then that probably tells you they're not great at Pokemon Unite. If people think Goodra is like kind of just mid, then yeah, they probably actually understand what's going on with Goodra. And what's going on with Goodra is the fact that all it really does is heal. All it really does is do damage. Doesn't really provide anything of value in terms of actually being a defender. Occasionally you can hit a nice power whip, but it's another thing that you like need people to follow up with, and honestly you're just power whipping them in so you can keep yourself alive. I don't know, you very rarely will you be able to hit a power whip to actually pull someone off of you. And then Acid Spray is also just like another just like build that buffs itself. Doesn't really do a whole lot in terms of helping its team. It's very good at staying alive. It's very tanky, but I don't know, it's a carry that, you know, it's an all-arounder in the body or in the role of a defender that doesn't really, you know, fill that role, and there are better carries. So C tier. Lapras. I want to put Lapras in B just because I think Lapras is way better than people give it credit for. But at the same time, Lapras is just kind of ass. Like, it doesn't do damage, but it also like just kind of dies. Its damage is okay, but it just, I don't know, just a slight buff to its passive where like it used to have like crazy damage reduction. Now it has like no damage reduction. Just give it like a little bit of damage reduction. Or another thing my buddy Galadite suggested, who is like a tournament level defender player, if you don't know, he suggested just giving it a little bit more healing on its auto attacks, which I think would also be just a little bit nice for Lapras. It does have a little bit of CC in terms of its second move being Ice Beam and Bubble Beam. I think both of those moves are great. You know, it helps out in that defender role a little bit more than something like Goodra does. So it does a little bit more than just be that wannabe carry. So I'll give it C. I kind of want to give it B though. That's a good Unite move. I'm giving it B. I just think Lapras is better than Goodra. So comparing apples to oranges, I think Lapras is slightly better. So E tier. Fight me. It's my list. Umbreon, S tier. Broken. It's an Eevee. Shocker. Surprising to absolutely no one. The Eevees are still, you know, some of the like 5 best characters in the game. Well, not the 5 best characters in the game, but they're 5 of the better ones. And Umbreon is of course an Eevee, and it is of course broken. So yeah, S tier. Doesn't die. Great Unite move. Still shields. There's a million shields going around. Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh's a tough one. I want to give Ho-Oh S tier just out of respect for it, but there's a couple things that are just like, is it? Because like on a base level, yeah, its Unite move is broken. I'm gonna give Ho-Oh S, but I don't know. It's not as broken as some of the other characters in S tier, if that makes sense. I just think like the value that it provides, and like a way that Comfey is, where like Comfey is like fundamentally just broken, overpowered. Ho-Oh is just fundamentally just good and valuable and will always be solid unless your Ho-Oh is backcapping, which that's a different story. But Ho-Oh is just really, really good. Like its Unite move just alone would probably put it A+ tier. But then you add on to the fact that Fire Spin is one of the best moves in the game, in my opinion. That gives it S tier. And then Flamethrower and Sky Attack are both playable. I prefer Sky Attack just for the mobility, as well as, you know, solid damage and honestly a pretty decent secure. Like I get a lot of like lane secures with Sky Attack that you don't really expect, and it's really good for like scouting positioning and stuff like that. I'm a huge fan of Sky Attack. Flamethrower is solid. It doesn't really do a whole lot of damage, just kind of tickles, but it's up all of the time. It has a really, really, really low cooldown, so it's playable. I think Fly is a little bit grief personally, but I don't know, people seem to enjoy it. But I think Ho-Oh is S tier, but it's just like a different kind of S tier. It's not S tier in terms of being broken, it's just S tier in terms of this character is really freaking good at everything. So yeah, S tier. Let's mix it up. Let's do physical attackers, then we'll do all-arounders, then we'll do our special attackers. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do physical attackers next. All right, we got the boys here. These A pressing boys, and they are here to press the A button and not a whole lot else. So starting off with Cinderace, I think Cinderace is so much better than people give it credit for, which is why I'm sticking it in B tier. But Cinderace is like looked at as this really, really bad Pokemon, but this character just does stupid, disgusting amounts of damage. And yeah, it's supposed to, obviously, it's an attacker, but like people just underestimate how strong Cinderace is, and it's consistent. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just like glazing Cinderace, or maybe other people are just hating Cinderace. I don't know. It's somewhere in the middle, but Cinderace is better than you think it is. Like, obviously, you don't love to see a lane Cinder in your games, but a high-level Cinder, a jungle Cinder who's ahead on levels is going to dominate a lot of games still. Like, the character just presses the A button, and it does so much freaking damage. So I'm giving it B. Greninja, after the Battle Pass buffs, you could talk me into low A, but I think I'm also going to give it B. Again, you could talk me into A just off the Unite move buff alone. Do I think Greninja is actually better than Cinderace? I don't. But it's also because I think Cinderace is really good. All right, you know what? Screw it. I'm putting them both in A. Spoiler alert. The first three are going to be in A tier. So yeah, I think Cinderace is really good. It's really slept on. And then I think Greninja, people think Greninja is way better than it is. So I'm going to give Greninja the benefit, or I could just put them both in B tier. Yeah, screw it. We're just going to put them both in B tier because I think it was more true to what is actually happening. So yeah, they're both going in B. Again, Greninja has its Unite move all the time these days and can do a lot of damage, but a lot of the time, you know, it's still just, you know, your random solo queue Greninja being useless. So it's a tough one, man. Like, you could talk me into putting Greninja in A if you really want it there, you can put it there, but I don't think Greninja is like a whole tier above Cinderace. I just also think Cinderace is really good. So I don't know. I'm rationalizing into that, you know, I'm keeping them together because I think they are closer together, because people think Greninja is better than it is. I think Cinderace is better than it is, so I'm just evening them out and putting them in B tier. So fight me. Decidueye has something these characters don't: an actual secure tool. That's Spirit Shackle. Stop playing Razor Leaf unless you have like a full front line on your team, guys. Unless you have a defender and an all-arounder and a support, if you're the only attacker on your team, don't play Razor Leaf. It's bad. It's trolling. All you're doing is damage. Speaking of all you're doing is damage, we'll get to that in a moment. But Spirit Shackle exists. Good Unite move. Desi's always just going to be a step above these characters because of Spirit Shackle. And yeah, we're going to put it in A tier. And then Duraludon, straight down to D tier. I cannot fathom how it is possible that Duraludon has one of the highest win rates in the game, when I have never, like, I don't think I've seen it. I don't see Duraludon's win. Drilon has not won a game on my team or against me in at least 2 seasons. I think this is the worst character in the game, bar none. Like, especially with all of the all-arounders that are dominating the meta, you are just a sitting duck, especially if you're playing Flash Cannon, which is easily the worst build in the game. Dragon Pulse is okay. Apparently there was a bug fix that makes it able to rip objectives again. Cool. That's all it's good for, is ripping objectives. You know what else is good at ripping objectives? Cinderace and Greninja that have so much more value to a team. Decidueye, same thing. Dragapult, we'll get to in a moment. But yeah, Duraludon is only good at ripping objectives. Flash Cannon is awful. Stealth Rock is there. I don't know. I think this character is just poorly designed and just loses to every single all-arounder in the game, every single speedster in the game. It's bad. It is bad. And I will not apologize for my take on Duraludon. I know a lot of people disagree with it. Don't care. Duraludon's awful. Dragapult, however, I think Dragapult is borderline S tier, but I'm going to put it in A+, just because I think its A presses do by far the most damage, and if people don't pay attention to a Dragapult on the enemy team, a Dragapult will easily carry a game and do 150,000 damage. It might be the easiest character to do 100+ K damage on in the game. You can consistently get it just by going invisible and walking up to a pad behind your team. If your team is like pushing forward, all you have to do, like say your team is just like fighting straight on the pad, just come in from the side as Dragapult with your Phantom Force, and then boom, hold the A button, you're wiping an entire enemy team pretty much. Or if you want to play Dragonite, you can totally do that. You're spinning around an entire enemy team while your team is fighting and they can't do a damn thing about you. Dragapult is really strong, so I'm giving it A+ tier. I think it has the best A press in the game, so therefore I'm ranking it ahead of all of the other ADCs. Let us do our all-arounders next. Holy crap, why are there so fucking many of them? All right, well, I thought I was gonna have room to leave them just in the B and D tier, so I wouldn't have to scroll down, but apparently not, because there are just so many all-arounders in this game. Anyway, Garchomp. We're going to start off with him, and I'm going to move Garchomp up to B tier. I think the character is very solid, presses the A button real well. Dragon build is good, really good. Ground build is decent, good sustain with his A press, B tier. Lucario got the buff to where after extreme speed, its attack buff used to scale off of oh crap, forgot what he used to scale off of, but it scales off its attack stat now. I think he used to scale, I don't know what he's, it got changed to where it does more damage now after extreme speeding, which is an indirect buff, which isn't really good. So I'm gonna leave Lucario in B. It's a fine Pokemon, but again, it's just kind of there existing. There are better all-arounders, but there are also certainly worse all-arounders. Charizard, I'm reluctantly giving S tier. Charizard is kind of just the Unite move button, but its Unite move is like top 2 in the game, so while that's all it does well, in my opinion, it does that incredibly well. So yeah, Charizard's S tier. It gets its Unite move all the time. Its Unite move is really strong, so I'll give it its just due and give it S tier, even though I don't think it's as good as people make it out to be. It is just a Unite move button. Like, are you scared of Flamethrower? Maybe if you're getting chased down. Are you scared of Fire Blast? No, just move. Fire Blitz is pretty good, but no one plays Fire Blitz. Fire Punch is a meme, but Charizard Unite is easily top 2 Unite in the game, so yeah. Put it in the S tier. Machamp. Oh god, Machamp. You can honestly talk me moving it down to D tier. I'm gonna leave it in C just because I do think it does still do really good damage and does have a really good Unite move. Submission is weirdly decent, believe it or not, just because grabbing a squishy can be valuable. I forgot Buzzwole. Get in there, Buzzwole. We'll get to you probably last. We'll get to you around, I think this is where Buzzwole came out, something like in here maybe. Who cares? Machamp, yeah, it's solid, good Unite move, good early. It's mediocre. There are certainly much better characters. Dragonite, being one of them, is going into the B tier. Good secure with Hyper Beam. Outrage does a lot of damage. Good rip. There are better characters. It goes in B. It's mid. It's fine. It's good to decent. So therefore, B tier. Aegislash. I think it's also B. This does really good damage. Solid early. Really good once it gets evolved. Really good with a level lead. Mediocre Unite move. Can be really hard to kill if people know how to play their sword form or their shield form very well. Like, this character becomes unbelievably tanky. People actually know how to juggle their boosters and keep themselves alive, so it can be pretty decent, but overall it's just kind of it's okay. Which is what so many of these all-arounders are, but there are also so many of them that are very good, which we will get to. Serena, I think, is B tier. Being able to Unite move unstoppable targets is very good for it. Other than that, just sort of there. So Stomp is good. Chop Kick's okay. Grassy Glide is kind of a meme. Triple Axle's okay. I don't know. Serena is like decent. All of his moves are okay. I think Stomp is clearly the choice if you're trying to play some Serena. I don't know. Put it in B. Azu. Azu's a weird one because it's really strong early. And you'll see a lot of like bad jungle Azus in your games for some reason. At least I do. I don't know why, but that's just a thing that happens in my matches a lot. I think I want to leave Azu in C. I think it's okay and can be pretty good at times, but it just comparing it to other all-arounders, I think there are just simply better ones. Its Unite move is kind of bad. All of its moves are good to pretty decent, but like, you know, it's kind of one of the more whatever all-arounders in my mind. So putting it in C tier, where I'm also going to put T-Tar. Am I going to put T-Tar in C? I don't think I can justify putting T-Tar in C because once it does get T-Tar, it is really good, but we're back to the old problem with T-Tar where like a few patches ago, people were like, oh, T-Tar is the most broken thing in the world, GB. How is it not S tier? This is the best thing ever. Oh my god, this is the Tyranitar is the most broken Pokemon of all time. When it got that initial Stone Edge buff, and people were like, oh man, this Tyranitar meta is worse than Zacian. Like, what the fuck were we talking about? Can you believe people actually thought that? And at the time, I was like, no, T-Tar's still kind of just same Pokemon it was, where it's better when it's T-Tar, but it's still ass before it's T-Tar, and then they nerf T-Tar itself again. So I'm putting T-Tar back in B. You could honestly talk me into keeping it lower, but once it does get T-Tar, it is pretty strong. Stone Edge, Dark Post, both playable. I think Stone Edge is probably better, but I don't know. True damage is obviously good. I'm giving it B. If you want it higher, argue with the wall. Scizor, I think Scizor also goes C. It's okay and can have really good matchups. Like if you're playing into a Tree, an Eldegoss, another all-arounder, a Decidueye. Like if you're playing a bunch of like close combat-y, brawly things, basically, if you're not playing anything like down here, Scizor's pretty good. If you're playing anything that is on the tier list already, Scizor's okay. So therefore, since these guys are all really good, and Scizor can, one shot, like, if you get a good dive on a Sylveon, you can kill it. If you get a good dive on a Chandelure, you can kill it. If you get a good dive on an Inteleon, you can kill it. But, like, Scizor really bad into mages, and mages are really good. So, C tier. Urshifu, I'm going to give Water Bear A, and I'm going to give Dark Bear B. I think Water Bear is pretty solid again. I'm going to give Water Bear B. Yeah. Like, as better as Water Bear is with the buffs, I'm not really super scared of it, but I do think it is significantly better than Dark Bear. So does that mean Dark Bear C? I can't give Dark Bear C because Dark Bear can be one-shotting things, which is useful. So, I don't know. They're both fine. Both can carry. Water Bear, I think, is a little bit better, but Dark Bear, a little bit better at taking out one guy. So, yeah. Zacian, A+. Zacian is still very strong. Press this A button real good. They nerfed it, by the way. Did you know they nerfed it? Did you know they made it so it's auto attacks do a little bit less damage every time it auto attacks? Neither did I. It's a joke. So, like, it's okay. Or it's still really good. Metal Claw and Sacred Sword are both very solid. Both very playable. Honestly, I think Metal Claw is, like, really slept on. The move is really strong. I don't know. That's just me, though. Buzzwole. I think Buzzwole can go into A tier. Regular A tier. Weirdly enough, I will never say Leech Life is better than Superpower. I will say Leech Life might actually be playable for the first time in Buzzwole's life span, because previously I thought Leech Life was absolutely awful, and it still is, like 75% of the time, because, well, your teammates can knock people out of your Leech Life. A lot of characters can just straight up dash out of Leech Life, and a lot of characters have passives that just make your Leech Life not even hit. So while it can be good at times, like, I don't know, it's just, I'd still rather just have the guaranteed superpower damage. But the one thing I will say about Leech Life that made the buff really nice is you have it up all of the freaking time now, which makes it incredibly fun to play. And it was never like not fun to play, but having it up so often, being able to like use it legitimately multiple times to fight, I think is pretty damn cool. So I'll give it A tier overall. Now let's do Blaziken. Blaziken's a tough one, because previously Blaziken I thought was like the best character in the game before it got nerfed. Like genuinely, I thought Blaziken was top 1 Pokemon in the game. And after the nerf, I think it's still very good. But I don't know if it's like good enough to actually keep it in S tier. I haven't really been seeing a ton of Blaziken, especially because there are other characters that are simply like just one character that's just on a completely other level we'll get to in next. But Blaziken is still incredibly strong. The Fire Punch nerf did like affect it in a real way. Like it does do significantly less damage now, but it's still a very good Pokemon. I'm gonna give it A+. You could talk me into keeping it S, but I think if you're talking about S tier all-arounders, like this character, I just said I thought Blaziken was the best character in the game last patch. Mimikyu was the best character in the game. Like maybe it's Leafeon, maybe it's Ceruledge. Well, I don't know. I don't know if Ceruledge is, yeah, Ceruledge is definitely still S. We'll get to that in a moment, but yeah, Mimikyu's dumb. Mimikyu is dumb. Why do they keep buffing this Pokemon? It's like the Glaceon thing a few, like, earlier this year and last year, like, just historically, where they just can't quit buffing a Pokemon that doesn't need buffs. Same thing with Delphox. Like, why on earth would a character that is, like, towards the top in pick rate and win rates constantly, that certainly needs nerfs for Shadow Claw and Shadow Sneak, let's not touch either of those moves, but let's buff it. Now, granted, the Trick Room buff didn't really do anything, but they also didn't address the problems that were, you know, Shadow Claw and Shadow Sneak. This character is broken. The only thing, like, I don't know, a lot of times Mimikyu players will still just ult characters at full health, which is not how you're supposed to use Mimikyu ult, unless you're like saving someone or just really want to take someone out of the fight. Best way to use Mimikyu ult is like hit your combo and then ult, so you can actually guarantee the KOs, but people just ult first on Mimikyu. Don't ult first on Mimikyu is what I'm saying, but that's like the only thing that like gives you a little bit of counterplay is if they waste their ult, then maybe you can like get your cooldowns off before they get their cooldowns off. But if Mimikyu just like Shadow Sneaks you from across the fucking map and you're playing like an attacker or even a supporter, you're just dead. So I don't know. Nerf Shadow Sneak is what I'm getting at. Really needs a range nerf. Shadow Claw needs a healing nerf, which they buffed a couple patches ago, and that it didn't need it then. So they need to nerf that again, nerf its damage. Yeah, Mimikyu's busted. Sorry, Red. It's true. Mewtwo X, I'm gonna stick into the A tier. You could also talk me into Mewtwo being B, but I do think Yoink, the Future Sight move, is pretty good. And then having Unstoppable on cooldown is also not bad. It's Mewtwo. I think outside of Mega, this character is like dog. But it does have the value of being able to yoink people, which can be valuable. But in Mega form, you're obviously a menace. You could talk me into B, but I'm going to give it low A tier. Metagross, I'm also going to give A tier. Metagross is like super slept on. Not enough people are playing this Pokemon. This character is so good. Does just ridiculous damage, has really good sustain. Meteor Mash is so good against squishies and very solid overall. And then you're playing a lot of Brawl, you're playing a lot of other all-rounders and defenders, slap on Gyro Ball, and just get a billion shields. Like, Metagross is awesome. Very, very slept on Pokemon. Gyarados, I'm going to give A+. You could talk me into giving it S tier, but, you know, Magikarp exists. That's the only thing keeping it out of S. And the fact that Aquatel is borderline unplayable. I don't know. There's one guy in my Discord server, link in the description, by the way, who swears by it. I don't know if he's still in there, but there was one guy who like had proof of like going on like a 20-game win streak with Aquatel doing like 100+ K a game, like every game. Like, okay, like we have the best Aquatel player in the world apparently, but like, do you ever see one? No. It's because Dragon Breath is just so busted beyond belief. Getting that attack speed buff and just ripping through everything is just a little bit obnoxious. So yeah. Phalanx. I'm a bit of a Phalanx truther. Just because I think it's better than it gets credit for, because people think Phalanx is trash after nerfs, and it is definitely not what it used to be, but Phalanx is good, man. But I'm still gonna give it C tier because dude, I can't. I gotta give Phalanx C. If I'm giving Scizor C, I gotta give Phalanx C. It's fine, but I think all of these characters are better than Phalanx, and if I'm comparing them to other all-rounders, I think it fits more in this tier than the other tier. So yeah, Phalanx, good, but not, you know, otherworldly amazing. I think Ironhead Beat Up is actually an insane build that if played more, people would realize it's better than you know, they give credit for. Otherwise, it's just kind of there. So yeah, Megahorn doesn't really do much. Unite move's good for ripping. Overall, pretty bad Unite move though. And then Ceruledge, his character's broken. Heals too much. Broken Unite move. Phantom Force, dumb. Is it Phantom Force or Shadow Snake? I always forget. I'm gonna say it's Phantom Force. It doesn't. Whatever the move that takes out underground is dumb. Then Bitter Blade just heals entirely too much. So yeah, way too much damage on this character. And if you give it a support, it's dumb. Nerfs didn't really do anything. Character's still busted. And let's try to get through our attackers. I am losing my voice, so this will not be easy. Starting off with our pal Venusaur. I'm going to give Venusaur A+ because Petal Dance is still really good, even though it doesn't get played. Sludge Bomb Solar Beam, very strong, does a lot of damage, really good secure, A+ tier. Gardevoir, still one of the highest damage output mons in the game, but I think there are better mages out there, so I'm gonna give it A. Really solid Pokemon, just struggles with an a rough early game, but once it gets going, once it gets that first move, very good. Really good Unite move that's up all the time. Gonna give it A. Cram or Rant? I want to give Cram A tier as well. Yeah, I'll give Cram A tier as well. Just a lot of damage as well. Pretty solid Unite move. The Unite move nerfs a while back did kind of hurt it, but Cram's just good, dude. It's just a good Pokemon. It's just good. I'm gonna give it A. Actually, looking at some other characters, I think Cram fits a little bit better in B. But Cram is so good. Cram is good. I'm giving Cram B. I can't give Cram, or I'm giving Cram A. I can't give Cram B. Even though I think it's, a little bit. I don't know. Cram's weird. Cram's a weird one. Pika. I'm also gonna give Pika A. I know people are gonna want to see it higher, but at the end of the day, it's still Pikachu. The Unite move buff was by far the best thing about the buff that I got. So you could talk me into it being a little bit higher if you want it to be a little bit higher. I wouldn't argue with you being A+. I don't think it's S tier though. I know a lot of people think Pika is really good, and competitively it probably is. Competitively it's unquestionably A+. It might even be S tier, but in just solo queue, it's still a Pikachu. Volt Tackle is incredibly annoying, but that's kind of all it is. It's just annoying, and it's not really like game breaking. So I'm gonna give it A. Yeah, I'm gonna give it A. That one might be one of my more controversial takes, is having Pikachu a little bit too low. But then I'm gonna go ahead and slap Ninetales right next to it, and people will be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Have you played against the Ninetales lately and gotten frozen like 7 times in a row before you can move? Get frozen by its passive, get frozen by its ability 1, get frozen by its ability 2 if it's playing Avalanche, Blizzard. You're just getting frozen by everything all the time. You're not able to move. That alone makes it good. And then you have its auto attack build, which can freeze you a lot as well. Decent Unite move. I just think playing against Ninetales is one of the more miserable experiences in the game, so I'm going to give A tier on that alone. If you think it's too high, is what it is. Sylveon, also going into the A tier. A tier is getting a little bit crowded. I could see Sylveon being A+. It's pretty tanky. Yeah, we'll give Sylveon A+. Yeah, we'll give Sylvie A+ for the mages. Why not? Sylveon deserves a little bit of A+ as a treat. I think the Hyper Voice buff was whatever. Or it's not even really a buff, it's just kind of a change. I think it's good, obviously, keep being able to hit more things, but like, I don't know, I explained this in like a couple Sylveon videos I've made. It's just like, it's weird getting used to, but it's obviously still Hyper Voice. But the real winner here was the Dragonite buff. I think Mystical Fire Dragonite is one of the better, more slept on builds in the game. You can become incredibly tanky, very hard to KO, which Sylveon already kind of was, and then you give it even better healing. So yeah, I think that's enough to solidify A+ in my mind. Espeon. Espeon's a weird one, where it's obviously very good and worthy of A tier, but I think just the fact that it does less damage than everything, and I want to give at least one character B, I'm gonna make it Espeon, even though Espeon is in no way, shape, or form bad. It is not bad at all. Espeon is good. But I think just the fact that it does the least amount of damage out of everyone here, as an attacker, it doesn't have as much CC as something like Ninetales, which is probably like comparable damage-wise. I think that's justifiable, right? Can we agree on that? And then it's fair. Delphox, I'm putting an S. Delphox has gotten less play the last like week or so. For some reason, I don't know why. At least in my games, but I think Delphox is still obscenely overpowered. Fire Spin being up all the time is stupid. Its Unite move is still really good. Then I mentioned Fire Spin being up all the time. Yeah. Glaceon is Glacie A tier. Yep. Presses buttons real well. Icicle Spear still locks on to you from across the map and deletes HP bars, even though not as much as it used to. Still pretty good at doing it. It doesn't have to aim doing so, yep, that's fair. Then we also have Icy Wind being pretty good shotgun move. Icy Wind really actually pretty good against squishies. Just like deleting, speedsters and stuff like that. I think it's pretty good. Pretty slept on build. Mew's a tough one because realistically in solo queue, most of the time you won't notice a Mew, so I would want to give it B. But just for the fact that there are just a few Mew players out there that are so cracked, I want to give it A. But God, if I'm basing it off of solo queue or like duo trio play, uncoordinated, like basically non 5-stack, non-tournament play, where Mew is like certainly up here, in, you know, tournament play, Mew's one of the better characters in the game. Just because Mew players are very good. It's less the character. We're talking about just the character and how it performs in an uncoordinated environments. I got to give Mew B. So that's my justification for it. I think Mew is definitely a better character than B tier, but like we talked about with Blastoise, like we talked about with Goodra, like we talked about with Dodrio, just how it's performing right now, I think, you know, Mew's kind of just one of the lower tier attackers in uncoordinated play. If that makes sense. I think that's fair in my assessment. If you disagree, that's what the comments are for. Chandelure. You know what? For the same reason, I'm gonna give Chandelure B tier. I do think, oh God, I can't just because of Imprison. Imprison's too good, and Furniture and Poltergeist. I think both of those moves are too good. I do think it has awful mobility. It's really susceptible to getting dove. It has arguably the worst Unite move in the game. Definitely bottom 5, bottom 7, 8-ish for sure. Worst Unite moves in the game. But it is still very good at doing damage. Fire, my dog just made a weird noise. Sorry. I don't know if my mic picked that up. But Overheat and Flamethrower both do really good damage. And then its secondary moves are both really good. If you get caught on them, you hate yourself, you hate your life. But, you know, if it's getting dove all game, it can be bad. I do think Chandelure is like, just, I don't know. I think the damage and, you know, the added goodness that its kit has can get it into A tier. Inteleon is a weird one. I'm going to give Inteleon A, but I don't want to. Simply because Snipe Shot Inteleons don't hit shots. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Now, hear me out on this one. It's another character that is way better than the tier I'm placing it in. But imagine you're playing a solo queue game. You have an Inteleon on your team that can choose between a move that is impossible to miss and does respectable damage now after a buff, and a move that does really, really good damage, but they have to have skill to hit. And your solo queue Inteleon chooses a Snipe Shot and then misses the secure on an objective, or it misses the shot on a 1 HP. We'll say, what's the stationary? We'll say it misses the shot on a 1 HP Wigglytuff when they could have just locked on with Liquidation. Yeah, Snipe Shot Inteleons are really, really, really awful in solo queue, so I'm giving it B tier for that reason. Just because, when was the last time you saw anyone hit a shot? That's my justification. Fight me. Okay. Oh, why do I keep saying that? I don't know. We have Mewtwo Y next. I'm gonna give Mewtwo Y A+. I never see Mewtwo Y, and I'm kind of thankful for that, because the character is obviously still strong. They haven't really touched it a whole lot in terms of nerfing. Obviously, they got rid of the EXs, which we'll get to in a moment. We'll get to in a moment for sure. But I think Mewtwo Y obviously still presses the A button real good. Still does a ton of damage. So I'm gonna give it A+. You can talk me an A if you want, but it's Mewtwo Y. I'm gonna give it A+. Miraidon, I'm giving S tier. How did this Pokemon not get nerfed? Charge Beam is one of the dumbest moves in the game. This is another character that thankfully I don't see a lot, because for whatever reason people just don't play it a ton. But Charge Beam is broken with a capital broken. That doesn't make sense, but you get the idea. That's how good that move is. So I'm gonna give it S tier. It's dumb. It should not. I don't know. I can't believe they put the patch through, getting rid of EX Pokemon, and had the audacity to say they feel like Miraidon is performing well. Like, what are we talking about? Charge Beam exists, and Electric Drift is also really good. And it's Unite move. Apparently, you can like cancel it and get like most of your charge back. So you can use your Unite move like all of the effing time. So as if Miraidon needed more of a reason to be broken. I don't know exactly how the Unite move thing works, but I imagine it's just like canceling it early and not using the entire thing. You get a lot of your charge back, which, yeah. And then finally, we have the new guy. I'm just gonna go ahead and plop it into A+ tier, which is where I'm actually gonna leave it. I think ARMAROUGE is really solid. I'm a huge fan of this release. I don't think it's broken, but I kind of do at the same time. I think Fire Spin has the potential to be very good to in need of nerfs, and I could say, yeah, you could probably give it a little bit of damage nerf and it won't affect it too much, but I also don't like want this character to get gutted, of course, and not that I have like any fucking influence, and people who think YouTubers do have influence over these developers are insane, and there are those people out there, so don't think that's just like a random like throwaway comment. Those people definitely exist, and people definitely think that me, the person who literally can't get a code to give away, they think I have influence over what the developers do. I've only gotten like one comment, like a couple of comments about it ever, but I've gotten them. And just imagine like what Spraggles or Chris or Indy gets. Like, people think we have sway over the game. I promise you, I've never been in contact with anyone at Pokemon Unite. So that's just a random throwaway comment because it was, I don't know. Yeah, it's a thing I got recently. Don't worry about it. Anyway, ARMAROUGE, going back to it, I think Fire Spin is incredibly strong. Having it up all of the time is so good, and then you get your huge shield from Flame Charge. I think if anything could use a nerf, it would be a slight damage nerf on Fire Spin, and then maybe like slightly reducing the shield on Flame Charge. But I don't really want to go nerfing like everything in this kit because I don't want that. Psyshock is totally fine the way it is. Armor Cannon is, I think Armor Cannon is okay. It's pretty good. Does solid to really good damage, but I think before you get level 11, it's kind of meh because you do have to get kind of close for what's supposed to be like a sniper build. But I think it's fine. Unite move is honestly pretty mediocre to borderline bad. I've had a few, like if you are sitting in a bush and you can catch like 4 people walking past you, you can hit like a whole team with it. Yeah, it's good. Or if you can like manage to actually hit it in a team fight and take out, you know, someone who is half HP, it can be good. But otherwise, the damage feels extremely lackluster. The stun is good on the Unite move, and I will say the character has like some pretty solid stuns. It's good in lane, really good in jungle, and overall, I think a very good release that could use some very slight nerfs, because this character can be really bad with too many nerfs, and I don't want that because I think it is incredibly fun. I'm really enjoying ARMAROUGE and is already above Sableye in terms of games played, which should tell you how little I've played Sableye. It's close again on Mewtwo Y. But yeah, here is my tier list. If you agree or disagree with any placements, go ahead and let me know in the comments down below. What do you think I got right? What do you think I got wrong overall? If I had to pick a best character in the game, I would probably go Mimikyu, maybe Miraidon, maybe Umbreon. Just depends on the day. But Leafeon ult is probably the best thing in the game. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. I didn't really put any thought into that. I didn't really put any thought into much of this, but yeah, here's the tier list. Go ahead, drop a thumbs up on the video. It really helps me out, and I appreciate you guys sticking around for this long of a video, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.